Welcome to Unorthodox Perspectives with your host, Luke Burrows.
I think like your mission, your vision, your purpose, your passion, it's all interlinked.
And Leeroy Mabonga.
Discipline is the first step to control.
All right, guys, we are live. We are back. Been a few weeks since we've done a live episode. Leeroy, how are you doing?
Yo, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. It's been a while. But yeah, man, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. So I had 2 Zoom meetings this morning, and they're both like 2 hours each. So, and then I've got a podcast interview, and then I've got a podcast interview. So I'm going on somebody else's show tonight, and then I've got another Zoom meeting at 7. So, yeah, I want to be like zoomed out and everything by the end of the day. But it's all part of it, you know.
I hear that, man. I hear that. Nah, respect. Nah, I like that.
Yeah. Go on.
Nah, just like it's just purposeful living, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I guess. It's just part of it. Like you have to be purposeful, I guess. And yeah. Nah, let's get into it, man.
So, guys, we were meant to have a guest join us. Hopefully, he still shows up, but we're kind of improvising. And so Leeroy and I thought that actually, let's share some things that we've learned recently about. So, a lot of things that, we'll obviously dive more into that. But so I've learned a lot about habits from reading this book. Let me grab it. Atomic Habits, which is an awesome read, guys. So I'm going to be sharing some things I've learned of this and a current book that I'm reading called The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, if I can talk. And just other things that I've learned over the last couple of weeks, and then we'll be discussing about that. Leeroy will be talking about some things that he's learned. So yeah, Leeroy, kind of what are some of the things that you've learned then?
I think I've learned that, like, having, you're talking about the Atomic Habit book. The book that I was reading about habits. I guess there's one key lesson I got from that book, and that was having an anchor like habit. Having an anchor habit helps, like, just channel everything around it in a way that, because you want to succeed in that one specific habit, everything else has to flow in a way to add on to that success, And I guess like one takeout I take from all the episodes we've done is that, like, having this consistency with you, like having an episode every week, like as much as we can sometimes get like so busy, like having that knowledge that every Friday there's something you have to do, it changes everything around, because now every other day you almost have an account for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Let me see if I can find it. I probably won't be able to. But there's this bit in the book that pretty much talks about exactly that. Oh, here we go. And so I think it's called habit stacking, where basically you obviously start off with a singular habit, but then it's kind of like that domino effect, right? So that singular habit, then you stack kind of all the other habits on top of that. So as soon as you like perform that habit, it's like the trigger for all the other habits then fall into place, if that makes sense. So and that's a real powerful kind of strategy, I feel like people can do, to set up those habits, because I think, especially with good habits, it spoke about it in the book that a lot of people, me as well, have a hard time sometimes of setting up those good habits, and so things like the habit stacking can help to kind of create those good habits and then actually perform them. So it's really awesome that you've set it up for yourself.
Yeah, man. Like, I guess it's in a way of trying to trying to see a consistent change. I guess if you really want to see like if what you're doing is working, having that one habit, it's almost like you count to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you start again. Like at that first one that if every single day, if it's, let's say, something you do every single morning, first thing in the morning, right? That's the first step to the next 10 steps that you're gonna do throughout the day. So the success of that step automatically makes it easy for you to, build on a successful second step, as much as you may not know it at first. And yeah, man, it's a journey, I guess. You're always learning, changing, and growing. Yeah, man. What have you
100%.
taken?
Yeah, so I mean, strategies like that from the book. So have you read the book or not?
Not that specific book.
No.
Yeah.
So what was the book that you read?
Um, my phone died. That I was reading it on my Kindle phone, on my iPhone, and literally my son broke my screen, so I need to fix the phone. So I can't even access it. But I'll try to get it, and then we'll see if we can link it. I'll try and log on to my Kindle and after the show, and then we can link it in the description or something. Yeah.
Definitely. But no, so from the book, I definitely learned about those sort of strategies with like habit stacking, and like you say, you just build on the success ultimately of like the next habit. One thing right at the beginning that was quite powerful is around not. I want to get this right. So he talks about not necessarily setting goals, but setting systems. So for example, like you might have a yearly goal, but then throughout the year, creating a system that will help you to accomplish that goal by the end of the year. Another one was I learned was it's not actually about the habit, really. It's about becoming the person who doesn't miss the habit, if that makes sense, like misperforming the habit. So he spoke about like let's just say with running or something, that's what I do every morning. And it's not about me actually going running or obviously that has great health benefits and helps keep me fit and all those things, but it's about becoming the person who doesn't miss getting up at whatever time I get up and go on that morning run. So it's a lot more deeper. It's like that discipline that you kind of create within yourself, and kind of being able to, I suppose, maybe a bit like manage your own thoughts, and I suppose like emotional intelligence maybe, because if we wake up in the morning and you don't feel like doing something, but you feel good like going on that morning run, but you still do. So that was a huge kind of taking from the book as well. It's about becoming like the person who doesn't miss performing those habits.
Going on that, like, how do you then feel? Like, when, let's say, a day that you don't really feel like getting up and running, how do you feel? I'm sure there's days that you've missed, right?
So since March, there hasn't been.
Say that again.
So since March,
Yeah.
since beginning of the year, so I go from Monday to Saturday, so I don't go on Sundays because so I take Sundays off. So I go Monday to Saturday every morning, and then the only days that I've missed has been if I've picked up like an injury.
Yeah. Okay.
Every other day, even if I haven't felt like it, I've went. Now I've changed the time sometimes to also fit in with my schedule. My schedule. There was a podcast interview one day, and it was somebody who was abroad, and so I had to kind of move my schedule because it was really early. So the time that I would usually go, so I had to be flexible with that. And some other things that I've kind of fitted running around my schedule, but so from Monday to Saturday, I've went every day since the beginning of the year, unless I've had an injury.
So like you think those times when you've gone, right? You've gone since then. But like you said, sometimes you wake up and you might not feel like going.
Yeah.
But how do you feel when you come back? How
Oh,
do you
like completely different. So this is like it's like the opposite. And I've kind of got into this thing now where even it's kind of weird. Like I notice the negative thought that I'm kind of thinking like I don't really want to go, but I don't necessarily like dive into it. It's kind of weird. Hopefully I'm making sense. I think sometimes like we have a thought and think to ourselves like we have to continue thinking that thought ultimately. So I like notice the thought. Oh, I'm saying to myself I don't want to go running. Then also like push it to the side and just continue, putting on my running gear, going down, get my bottle of water, etc. So I still just not even think about actually running per se. I think it talks about it in the book, but just doing the next kind of thing in the sequence that would get me out the front door. And when I'm out the front door, like I'm there, like it kind of, it kind of happens. But yeah, I've kind of noticed that I've kind of got to this point now where I'm aware of like the thoughts that I have, like I don't want to go, can't be bothered, etc. But I don't necessarily dive into them or like think about them more, and then end up not going ultimately, because you're continually thinking to yourself, well, I really don't want to go, I'm not going. So I notice it and then just continue with ultimately like that routine, gear, etc. So, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. That makes sense, man. Nah, that's powerful, man. It's powerful because you've come to a point where your mind is in a state where you can recognize um it's almost a negative like step,
Mm.
you know, like it minuses you from actually like getting to that person that you say you want to become, right? Like remember
Mm.
what you're saying, like it's not necessarily about running now. It's actually you are the person who runs, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, there was also this, and let me see if I can find it in the book. I'm going to probably keep going back to this. There was this one point in the book as well I wanted to mention that was quite powerful. No, but continue while I'm trying to find it.
No, calm, man. Nah, but it's those little things, I guess, like that we don't necessarily see when we are in our heads, as much as we may be in our thoughts. Like we don't see those things that actually like keep us from the positive things that we actually want to achieve or the person that we actually want to become. Because in that entertainment, like you said, it brings me back to that episode we spoke on at one point, and I was talking about the 6 7 second rule. It's like the sooner you get yourself moving, like you said, moving towards a step, towards outside, whether that's putting on your shoes, getting the bottle of water, that thought may come into your head for 2 minutes. But realize that there's a time, if you are still learning, that's why like shouldn't be too hard on yourself. Because if you're still trying to get to that point, I'm pretty sure, sometimes you get your shoes on, but you find yourself on the couch and you're just like, you know what, I'm not going anywhere, But as you continue, like not necessarily forcing it, but willing that person to become yourself. Do you know what I mean? If you look at the
Yeah.
willpower like that, it's like you're willing that person. It's like you say you think that you can achieve this, and then you're saying, I am willing to actually seeing this person become. If
Yeah.
you look at the challenges and things that you're having to face in a different way. Whereas when you think to yourself, I have to do that to become this, it's like, whoa, like that's like beyond me, if that it makes sense.
It
So it
does.
becomes the magnitude. Yeah, go
Yes.
on.
Sorry. No, it does. And so I found the part in the book, and it talks about um, about kind of making or performing the habits over a period of time, so they become a part of who you are. ultimately. So apart from the book, is like the goal is not to read a book, it's to become a better reader, and so it talks about how kind of we can link our habits to our identity of like the person who we want to become, and focus on the daily improvements to making those habits like a part of who you are ultimately. I think that's quite powerful and something that we can do with any habit or anything like we want to do in our lives. So let's say let's just say somebody wants to do what we do and become a podcaster, right? It's then thinking about what are the actions, what are the habits I need to set up to kind of do that, right? What does a podcaster do? He podcasts. So then set up the habit of every week or 3 times a week or whatever it is to perform that habit, because then it's linked to like an identity per se, and then linked into like who you are, and so I kind of like that really. And it also talks about the goal is not to run a marathon, it's to become a better runner. Like people ask me all the time, well, Luke, why'd you go running? I have no interest in running a marathon, like no interest whatsoever. I do it, I do it because I'm kind of on this journey, I am on this journey of becoming a better version of myself, like every day, a better version of myself, and meditation, running, like whatever it is a habit to help me to ultimately accomplish that. So I think for people, to like think about what habits they can set up to kind of get them from where they are to where they want to be, and link them to like that identity they want to create for themselves, really. If I found that quite powerful. That's, if anyone's got this book, it's on page 34, which is
No, I'm gonna have to get a copy of that and just run through it as well. But yeah, man, I don't know. I guess, like you said, like here we are, like in just coming on here, just improvising, like it's a point of reflection, really. Like I remember when we got to the 10th episode, and I was like, "Wow, we're actually on double digits,"
already.
And
Already.
that's what I'm saying, like, yeah, as much as we are still just plugging along, doing what we're doing, like I feel like we're actually giving out value. We're taking our time, like to actually share what's on our mind, and people are actually coming on board here and actually taking a piece of their time to share what they're going through, what they're doing, like, for free. That's big for me, and yeah, man, I just thank anyone out there who's listening to us, like, and I hope we are edifying, people's lives in some way, That's one thing that's something I learned, man.
For sure, man. I think that will continue to happen as we do more episodes and kind of grow with what we're doing. Before I come on to the kind of the other book that I'm reading at the moment, and the main thing I've learned from, like, I'm only probably about one chapter in, and kind of what I've learned from there. Is there anything else you wanted to share with what you've learned over like the past month or anything?
Nah, just a lot of gratitude, just a lot of gratitude. Be thankful, man. Be thankful for every single thing you have, because you never know. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's always someone who's worse off than you, and there's always someone who's better off than you. So there's no amount of situations that you can get into. There's nothing that you can ever, find yourself into that you cannot think that there's a way out. Because if you look around, there's probably somebody who you can also look to for encouragement, for motivation, to actually see yourself out. It reminds me of, was it Max that we had?
Max, yeah. So that was probably one of our latest episodes, because we didn't record an episode last week, did we?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, our latest episode.
Stay tuned and you see.
Well, no, I just wanted to say, like, I love this story. So
and
his transformation, So
it was powerful, man. It was powerful, like, and I guess people will hear it when they listen to the episode, But if you think of that sort of like scenario or somebody's life, like you wouldn't have thought. You walk into a room that he's probably commanding in a different. He's become a different person, and that's because of a habit that he stuck onto and consistently became who he is. That did not define him, but that one habit he probably started has stacked up to bigger ones today. Yeah, so yeah,
Powerful.
that's all I have to thank for, man.
It's powerful,
Thankful.
man. Like habits are really powerful, especially when you because they compound over time. Um, so in the other book I'm reading, it's right over there, so I'm not going to go and get it. But it's called The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. It's by the founder of Mind Valley. Have you ever come across Mind Valley?
Mind Valley.
Yeah. No, check it out. It's an awesome platform. And really, so in the first part, it talks about basically challenging the societal rules that we have, because ultimately they no longer serve us. And I completely agree. And I'm really like into this first. I mean, really into the book because of the first chapter so far. And talks about the difference of yeah, of course, like we have laws, in each country, and they're there for a reason. And obviously we can't have violent crimes going around or kind of and all that stuff. But then with the societal rules, there's a complete difference, and it's about challenging those for ultimately like human transformation, like really, so obviously ones that I'm sure we've spoke about before is with a lot of you have to go to so education system, right? So a lot of kind of school, college, uni, get a job, like that system. You got to marry by this certain age, and if you don't, people look upon you strangely or like question that. Buying a house, this kind of gets pushed down your throat, especially as young people, like buy a house, buy a house, buy a house, and which is why I actually love. Have you ever read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yeah.
And it spoke about there, isn't it? Like, well, actually, your house is not an asset because it doesn't bring you in.
Doesn't bring you anything. So it's a
liability. It's a liability, right? And it's just like, like these other ways of thinking is what's going to lead to like that human progression. I feel, and just so many other kind of different societal rules. Sorry, and so yeah, it's a really fascinating read in the first chapter, really. So Leeroy, what's your thoughts on like societal rules, I suppose?
Oh man, that's a subject for another day. Nah, man, I have my own thoughts, but yeah, I mean, like outdated, that's for sure. Like they aren't like two-way. It's a one-way street, if that makes sense. Like there's not much benefit for us, by the societal rules. Like there's not much benefit for the masses in a way, and I guess our generation coming up and having that mind of free thought of being born free. I guess like now it's the point where you're realizing that, hold on a minute, like there's still something that's holding me back in a way. And I guess that's why there's a lot of change coming, and like you're saying, you're reading that book and it's creating a whole new pattern of thought. Like, you don't know where that thought pattern is gonna lead you, but it's realizing what you're living under. You're realizing what it is that, what is life. But at the end of the day, you already know that you can create what your life is, if that makes sense. Like you
True.
ultimately are the creator. So
100%.
in in feeding those societal rules that already exist, and you already know they're not really facilitating an environment that creates your reality, it's very difficult for you then to entrust yourself to actually build your life based on those societal rules. And now it becomes a point where you're questioning into a point of seeking for new ways to actually building a life that you yourself has thought of and wants to create. You know what I mean? And I guess that's taking back that power. I guess that's where it is. And it's realizing that you as an individual are a part of society, but as well as that you can also change society, you know, but you first have to change yourself. So I don't know. I, you know, yeah, I'll just leave it at
We're gonna leave it
that.
as that, man. We definitely have to do an episode deeper on that. I think it is definitely a much kind of deeper topic. But yeah, I completely agree. And there was one point in the book, again, I don't want to mess it up, but pretty much said like these like societal rules, etc., were like created by people, obviously over a long period of time, but they were created by people no smarter than you, and so therefore you can create your own rules for your own life, like you say, like create your own reality, and this gets talked a lot about, or definitely I've seen it within like the personal growth space of like 100 years ago these roles probably much more needed. Well, not even yet 100 years ago, like 500 years ago or something, because you had, even going back to when we were all like cavemen, etc., like you had to stay with your tribe per se, because of if you go out and you get eaten by a fucking tiger or something. But you kind of don't have that anymore. And so, but like our brains, like it gets, I've heard this so many times, but our brains are still the same ultimately. They want to keep us safe, etc. And so obviously that families want to keep each other safe, and I kind of understand that. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of pressure. If it is buy a house by this age or whatever it is, and it's like, well, we're just so much further along, like in terms of like just where we are in time. And yeah, again, I just always come back to like these rules just don't serve us anymore. Just don't serve us anymore. And so, like
I
you
mean,
said,
for example, like, sorry to cut you off,
it's fine.
but like, for example, like I've got a friend of mine who literally he realized, he said himself, he came to a point where he realized that he doesn't need to have a place to live because of the kind of work he was doing. He was doing living care work, right? And he thought to himself, like, there is not really a need for me to live, to actually have a place that I call my own and pay bills, and while I live somewhere else for most of the part of the month, in a way, you know, like just to come back to a week, and I've been paying that for what, for nothing. It's like, why then not take myself out of that bondage of paying all those monies for nothing, but instead of that, saving that, taking my children to, he would take his children every single time he's off work, he's in some part of the world, right? Because now he's utilizing, like you said, he's creating. He had read that book, the 4 Hour Work Week.
Oh yeah, I've read that. I read that this year. That's good.
Powerful book, you know what I mean? Like, and he literally just said, let me try and actually apply, and he was living the life that he wanted, because it was not a point where he had to wait to take his kids, to
Yeah.
holiday or go somewhere by himself, or, travel the world. it gave him that freedom because he realized where he is in his life, what he can do in his life, and how to do it in a way that also gives him a space to also live his own life. And it goes back to what you said. We end up having to, you have to create, your own philosophical way of how you interpret life, not in a way that's going to harm other people, but in a way that integrates you interdependently with other people. I love that book, Seven Habits of Successful People.
I haven't read that yet.
Oh, powerful, man. Like,
Yeah, I gotta read that. I have
it's
to read that.
those 7 habits. Like, I remember they've carried me through so much, like over the past 3 years, because it comes from making sure you take care of their habit. There's 3 habits that are dependent. Then there's 3 that are independent, and then there's the last one that moves you into a space where you become interdependent with other people, right? Like, I can't really like unpack the book, those 7, but you for yourself. Literally, like the first time I read the book, I only read up to where the book explains those 7 habits only. But just those 7 alone, like they were powerful enough to even apply. But reading the rest of the book, it's even just more, it unpacks it. You know what I mean? So I guess it's having that ability now to look within ourselves and actually see, like, yes, there is that pressure from society to say buy a house, do this at a certain age, right? But at the end of the day, it then becomes a point where they can you have to be able to understand how can you then match up your philosophy of life and the environment you're in, and not transgress against the laws that you live under. You are having to work and actually live under and still have a successful life of your own. Do you know what I mean? That makes sense. But yeah, man, like that would be me.
One final point, and then we'll wrap up, is
Yeah.
in terms of it also, it talks in the book about like taking risk, and I think that's where some of these societal kind of rules come in, and I think it's one that I'm exploring further. But I just kind of thought to myself, then it's kind of funny how with these societal rules that people feel like maybe like your friends, doing that is a risk, but then getting a mortgage for 200,000 or 250,000 isn't a risk. It's kind of, I just thought to myself, like it's kind of weird. Like, yeah, I don't know.
I think it's a topic. It's a serious topic.
It is. It's a weird one. Like, getting that mortgage is a risk, but yet we're okay to be like, okay, do that, take that risk, but not take the risk of actually creating, you like your own life ultimately, and obviously like your friend and like, basically with what he did, I'm sure he got kind of frowned upon of doing that. So yeah, I find that interesting. How more of like people are okay with buying a house, still a risk, but starting a business, oh no, don't do that, or I'm gonna travel the world or live on an island in, I don't know, Jamaica or whatever. I'm just kind of making stuff up, but but then that gets frowned upon, and it's like, what? Like, really?
Like, I just had a thought from that. Sorry, I just had a thought. Like, when you say, okay, you're gonna put down 250, you're gonna pay 250,000 for a house, but for your own, like, to take a risk on your own self, you wouldn't even trust a penny. You won't even trust an effort of putting yourself into that place of But I was thinking, imagine now, all that installment you're going to pay for that 250,000. Although you may not know exactly what you want to do, what if you were to save up all those installments?
Yeah.
until you find yourself in a place where you understand what you
100%.
want to do. And
That's
wouldn't you already have so much?
I love
Look at
that.
the pricing of a housing and look at it all and say, okay, fine, you can afford a mortgage, right? Fine. I am going to challenge myself to save as much as a mortgage, right, every month or half of that or whatever. I may not know what I want to do right now, but when I decide, I will have a massive packet of capital. Whereas for £250,000, a mortgage that you've paid down for 10,000, 5,000, you're already in debt. You're already back. You know what I mean? Yes, you can see the house you bought, but it's not like you said, rich dad, poor dad. It's not. It's a liability now. You just bought yourself a £250,000 worth of a liability, and the savings are better than a liability. You know. But yeah, man.
100%.
Nah, it's an episode of another day.
Yeah, again, that's probably another deeper episode. But no, I feel like it's good to kind of start to have these conversations and reflections and everything, really. Cool. Well, guys, if you have any questions for us, leave them in the comments section, or you can drop us a message on social media. Our Instagram is at Unorthodox Perspectives. I'll link it in the description. Follow myself and Leeroy on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. Are you on Twitter, Leeroy?
No, not on Twitter. Just
on
on
Twitter.
Instagram.
Well, I'm pretty much everywhere. So, guys, feel free to connect with us. Yeah, my handle for all platforms is at Real Luke Burrows, and Leroy, I'll hand over to you to give you your handle.
My Instagram it's at Atlasly Speaking. Yeah,
Okay.
Atlasly Speaking. That's it.
Cool. So I will link those down below. And yeah, guys, thank you for listening, tuning into this episode. A little bit improvising today because we did have a guest plan, but hopefully we've shared some things for you to go and think about, and then in future episodes we'll dive more deeper into these conversations. And like I mentioned before, I feel like it's very good and very important actually to start to have these conversations. So until next time, guys, stay safe and have an awesome rest of your week.
Take it easy.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Unorthodox Perspectives.
If you liked today's episode on the show, please subscribe and leave a comment below.
All relevant links for today's episode of the podcast can be found in the description, so please check them out.
And we will be back next week with another episode. Until then, have an awesome week.